Okay, Bruchim Haba and welcome everyone. We're Bruchim Haba to the Kollel Agra de Pirka of Queens, New York. We have a very special topic today, Parshas Re'eh. Before we begin, if I could just make a few important announcements. Firstly, I invite everyone to check out our new website. A good friend of mine designed really a beautiful venue where all the Shiurim, all the online Shiurim are gathered in one place. There's actually a very convenient way to search all the Shiurim on, it's called RabbiDG.com. It would have been Rabbi Daniel Glatstein, but Daniel, some people they spell with D-O, D-A, and they never find that. And then Glatstein, forget about it. So we kept it simple, RabbiDG.com. All the Shiurim are there. There's a search engine. It's arranged by subject, so you could search all the Shiurim on a particular Parsha or Masechta, which is also available on Torah anytime. But here, you could search the Shiurim based on length. Let's say you want a 10-minute share, you want a 50-minute share, you want a 2-minute share. You could search, you want Shiurim on Kivrei Tzadikim, you want Shiurim from the Chida, you want Shiurim from the Chasam Sofer. So there's an amazing search availability that somebody built, and that's also available. Likewise, there are a number of Shiurim now that are exclusive to the OU, All Parsha site. So those Shiurim are indicated as well. All the Shiurim could be accessed. If you want to access any of the written material, the weekly Parsha sheets in Lashon HaKodesh or in English, it's available on the website as well. But every week for the OU, there's a special share on the Parsha, the Ramban on the Parsha, the Balaturim on the Parsha, and the Ben La'ashri on the Parsha. Those Shiurim are available on our site. If anybody wants to order the Sefer in English on Elul and the Yom Naram, the Mystery and the Majesty, you could go to the site and you could order it there as well. Be'ezus Hashem, the inaugural edition of the Lashon HaKodesh Sefer on Chumash is being prepared for publication, and B'siyata D'Shmaya, we hope it will be available for this coming Bereshis. If anybody would like to participate in the publication, please contact us. We're going to print Be'ezus Hashem pretty soon. Okay, so let us begin. Parshas Re'eh. And let's begin with the story in the Gemara Bava Basra.
I'm sorry, before you start, again, what's the name of the
website? RabbiDG.com.
Thank you.
RabbiDG.com.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so the Gemara Bava Basra says like this. Rav Papa have a salak bedarga. By the way, if you want to, let's say, join us for any of the Shiurim, there are a lot of Zoom Shiurim. We give Monday and Tuesday night, there's a Gemara Shiur in Daf HaShavua. Sunday morning, there's an Ian Shiur. If you ever want to jump on the Zoom, you could just go to that site, RabbiDG.com, you click, and you're right on. So you don't have to remember any codes, you don't have to remember any information, you just press the button, learn now, and you're on. Okay, so Gemara says like this, Rav Papa v'solek bedarga. Rav Papa was going up a ladder. We should all go up ladders. That's life. Life, you're climbing a ladder. But Rav Papa was literally going up a ladder. Ishtamid kare. The leg gave way. It slipped. Ishtamid kare. His leg slipped. His foot slipped. Boi lamefal. He was primed to fall. He was about to fall off a ladder. Now, if Rav Papa falls off a ladder, it's probably a little bit more dangerous than if a regular person fell off a ladder. Rav Papa, we find in many places in Shas, was a Baal Basar. He was a heavy individual. Amar, he said, as he's sort of slipping, Hashta Kain, a Chayiv Man de Sanilan. Now that this has happened, then the one that hates us is Chayiv, it's a euphemism for himself, like a Sabbath desecrator and like a idolater. In other words, Rav Papa is saying, basically, it looks like he's suffering the fate of a Chiyav Skila. He's falling off a ladder. We know part of Skila is they would throw someone off a building. Amar le Chia barav midifti l'Rav Papa. Chia barav midifti said to Rav Papa, no, you're not suffering the fate necessarily of a Machal Shabbos, and you may not be suffering the fate of an Oved Avodah Zarah, but Shema Ani ba liyadcha v'lo pernasai. Maybe an Ani came to you and you didn't support him. Maybe the reason why you're falling off a ladder and your foot is giving way and the ladder is breaking, maybe the reason why the ladder is breaking is because you did not support an Ani. Now, we're in the world, the Reb Chia midifti dream up that if somebody doesn't support an Ani, a ladder gives way and the foot slips. Where does this come from? You know, you can't just tell somebody who's suffering, well, maybe it's because this, maybe it's because that. I mean, it seems a little far-fetched. Of all the mitzvahs in the Torah, of all the halachas in Shulchan Aruch, where did he get that maybe you had the opportunity to support an Ani and you didn't? So there's a famous gra, one of my favorites. There's a pasuk in Parsha Re'eh, Ki fasa yach tiftach as yadecha aloi v'ha'avei ta'avitenu dei machzoroi asher yachsar loi. So I got an email, somebody said, Rabbi, when you lane, it's very distracting. Why are you laning in the middle of the shiur? So, first of all, what do you mean? I can't have a good time also? I'm not allowed to have a good time?
It's great.
Okay, so again, I don't know what people think. Reb Tzvi thinks it's good. The other guy doesn't think it's good. So it's 50 against it. But anyway, the trup is very important sometimes. And here's the key. What?
It's more than 50%.
More than? Okay, Yaakov also goes for it. Fine. Okay. The Gemara Megillah says that Kol hashoyne b'lo zimra alav hakasav omer. You have to learn with a niggin. In fact, not only does Chumash have a niggin, but Mishnayos also has a niggin. They say that Rabbi Yashiv used to learn Mishnah according to the ancient Mishnah. In fact, there's a Tiferes Yisrael, a Masechta Erechin, who says that when the Gemara says Chesurei Mechzera v'hachi katani, that when the Gemara says it's missing words, and this is what it means to say, what do you mean it's missing words? That the Mishnayos had to fit like a trup, a certain tune. And sometimes, to fit the tune, they would have to word it a certain way. Anyway, so on these words, Kifasayach tiftach, the trup is Kifasayach tiftach, darga severe, says the Goin. The Goin wants to know, where did Reb Chia midifti come off telling Reb Papa maybe an Ani came to him and he didn't support him? So says the Gra, it's brought in the Sepnim Mishulchan Gra, that the trup on Pasayach Tiftach is darga severe, to be merames, that anyone who hides their eye from tzedakah, the stairs break under them. Darga, the step, severe breaks. Wow. Darga, severe, the stair breaks. By the way, I'm going to add something to this, because there's another instance. There are many instances of darga severe, but we have an amazing chiddush that was discovered. Okay, by the way, in the Oyel Yaakov of the Dubna Maggid, a student of the Gra, of course, the Dubna Maggid quotes his Rebbe, the Gra. He says, Amar HaKoisev, Oidi Medar Bazeh, Ezgra Mashar Isi, from the Goin, on the Pasuk, Rav Papa Havasalik B'darga, on this Gemara, that where did he get that because of a failure to give tzedakah, the stairway breaks in, and it comes from the trup of Kifasa Yachtiftach. Fine. So what's amazing is that Rav Papa was not the only person who encountered such a situation where the stair fell in, where the ladder broke, but we find something similar by one of the greatest individuals who ever lived, by none other than David HaMelech. The Gemara tells us in Masechta Shabbos, the Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, Mai Dichsiv. David HaMelech says to the Rebbe Shem, Hoidieni Hashem Kitzi, God, teach me my end. Umidas Yamai Mahi, tell me how many days I have. Eida'a Ma Chadal Ani, teach me my mortality. Meaning David HaMelech wanted to know, when is he going to die? Amar David Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, King David said before God, Ribbon Shalom, Hoidiyeni Hashem kitzi. God, tell me my end. Amar loy gezer milvashim edim kizral basav adam. God says, that's against protocol. We don't give out that information. That's exclusive info. So Amar loy b'Shabbos Thomas. So David says, let me know at least what day. Amar loy b'Shabbos Thomas. You're going to die on Shabbos. Be'echad b'Shabbos. He said, let me die Sunday. Amar loy, no. Kvar yeh malchus shloim bincha ve'in malchus nagas v'chaver t'klim malima. You can't die on Sunday because it's already time for Solomon to take over. So he said, Emos v'erev Shabbos. I'll die Friday. Amar loy, ki toiv yoim b'chatzirecha me'olav. Toiv li yoim echad shata yoshos v'ktara me'elef. David wanted to die on Friday. God said no. One day of your service in your Torah is more valuable than all the thousands of karbanos that Shamelech will bring. So you got to die Shabbos. Can't do it on Sunday. It's already time for Shloimeh. Friday, I don't want to lose out a day of your avodah. So what happened? Kol yoima de Shabbata have yaseh v'garam. Vigaris, every Shabbos, he sat and he learned Kol Yoma the whole day. He did not read the Mishpacha, he did not read Ami, he did not read, and we don't have to go through all the papers that we usually go through, didn't read any of them. He learned the whole day on Shabbos. Now, Hahu Yom, and if a person's learning, the Malach HaMavos can't get them. Hahu Yoma Debay L'Menach Nafshe, on the day he was supposed to die, Kam Malach HaMavos Kameh. Malach HaMavos tried to get him, he couldn't get him. They'll have a pasuk pumim migir, so he didn't stop learning. Amar Ma'i Avidle. Malach HaMavos said, what should I do? Havale Bustana, there was an orchard, Achari based behind this house. Asa Malach HaMavos, Salik Ubachish Bi'ilani. He started rattling the trees. Nafak Lamechsi. Damelech went out to see Vaskeitan. Have a Salik Bedarga. He went up a ladder. Ifchis darga! The step gave way, mitusei from underneath him, and David fell, and David passed away. Now, I once saw in the Sefer of Rav Pinchas Friedman, the Shvilei Pinchas, what is the significance that the Malach HaMavos went rattling in the trees? The idea is like this, that why does man have to die? Because of the sin of Adam HaRishon. David HaMelech, of course, was the Gilgal of Adam HaRishon. Adam, that Arizal stands for Adam, David, and Mashiach. So why did David die? Because of the tree, Rachish Bi'ilane. He was rustling in the tree. In other words, he was drumming up the sin of the Eitz Hadas. But what do we find over here? We see that David HaMelech died. Why? Ifchis Darga. Ifchis Darga, the step gave way, it caved in. Ifchis darga, the step caved in. Now that's not a common way to go. And therefore, it would seem that we're entitled to question and ask, what is the significance of the fact that David HaMelech passed away similar to what the fate of Rav Papa was going to be? Ifchis darga. Now, here's an important rule. We are not allowed and entitled to attribute any deficiencies to our Avos HaKadoshim. We are not entitled to attribute any deficiencies to Nevi'im. We cannot criticize Amoraim. We cannot criticize Tanoim. We cannot criticize Rishonim. Not only that, we cannot criticize any of the Chachmei Yisrael. There's a tshuva from the Ben Ish Chai on the pasuk, Al tigu b'meshichai uvinvi'ai al tareu. Do not touch my anointed ones. Where somebody asked the Ben Ish Chai about some of the personal habits of the Rashash. And the Ben Ish Chai writes, we don't even discuss Gedolei Yisrael as if they were regular people. We don't discuss their behaviors. They're not a topic of, the way they conduct themselves in their personal life is not a topic of conversation. We don't discuss them, certainly not attribute any fault to them. So to say that David HaMelech passed away, chas v'shalom, because of a failure to give tzedakah, we would not be entitled to do that. But I once heard a shiur from a great Rav, Rabbi Isaac Bernstein of England, originally from Ireland, and he sort of drew the audience's attention to this Gemara in Shabbos in light of the Gra. In light of the Gra, who says that Rav Papa was suffering the fate of the Darga severe because he failed to fulfill Pasa Yach Tiftach. And here the Gemara is saying that that's what happened to David HaMelech. So even though we're not entitled to attribute a lack of giving tzedakah to David, but if we were to find somewhere in Chazal, where Chazal have already revealed to us this type of lacking, Ba'adoinenu David, then it would be most illuminating that which the Gemara says, Ivchis Darga Mituse. So that is exactly what Rabbi Bernstein did, and maybe at the end we'll add one or two small points. We know, we're all familiar that David HaMelech was not allowed to build the Beis HaMikdash. Why not? He wasn't allowed to build the Beis HaMikdash because the pasuk says in Divrei Hayamim, Vayehi alai dvar Hashem le'mar dam la'roiv shafachta milchamas gdolos asisa. You spilled a lot of blood, you waged a lot of wars. Loisiv nevayis l'shmi ki damim rabim shafachta artz alefana. You spilled a lot of blood. So we sort of understand that intuitively to mean the Beis HaMikdash is a place that makes peace in the world. It brings peace between God and the Jewish people. And David HaMelech waged war, and he can't build the temple. His hands are full of blood. But upon further analysis, this is quite troubling. I mean, could a moyel not build the Beis HaMikdash because his hands are full of blood? I mean, it's dam of a mitzvah. You say, okay, but a moyel is not killing people. You know, who was David killing already? He was killing Amalekim. He was killing people who occupied Israel. It's Milchemes Mitzvah. You know, there's an amazing shaila in halacha. Can a Israeli soldier who killed the enemy in battle, and let's say an Arab, can they duchen? We know that a roitzeach is not allowed to duchen because damim yadehem damim maleu. Can an Israeli soldier who killed the enemy, who's a kohen, duchen? And Rav Soloveitchik paskined no. Rav Hershel Schachter brings in one of his svarim, either in the Nefesh Harav or Pninei Harav, that Rav Soloveitchik paskined not. His hands, based on the idea that a roitzeach cannot duchen. However, Maran Rav Avadia Yosef has a tshuva, absolutely he could duchen. His hands are not soiled in blood of Ritzicha. His hands are sanctified with dam mitzvah. It's mochemes mitzvah. And that's the psak of Rav Avadia Yosef. And in that vein, can we say that David HaMelech couldn't build the Beis HaMikdash because his hands were full of blood? I mean, he killed the enemy. That's a Kiddush Hashem. It's a mochemes mitzvah. Let's say somebody kills Amalek. They can't build the Beis HaMikdash. I mean, the Rambam says 3 mitzvos were chayiv upon entry into Israel: kill Amalek, build the Beis HaMikdash, and gather and build the Sanhedrin. So someone who kills Amalek, he can't build the Beis HaMikdash. So we have to investigate this a little bit further. In Divrei Hayamim, the pasuk says, "V'hinei ve'anyi hachi noisi leveis Hashem," and I in my poverty, I prepared for the house of God. This is David talking. Zahav kikarim ea elef v'chesef, gold, kikar, talents, 100,000 of silver, elef, alofim kikarim, 1,000 talents. How much is 1,000? 1,000? 1,000,000, no? 1,000, 1,000, 1,000,000 talents of silver. V'la nechoshes, v'la barzel, ein mishkal. The copper and the iron, forget about it. Ki l'raiv hayos, too much. V'yetzim avonim hachinois, v'alehem toisif. And the wood and the stone I prepared and added. So David HaMelech said, I in my poverty, I prepared all the resources for the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Yalkut Shemaini. I don't understand. That's what basically David HaMelech says. And I in my poverty prepared billions and trillions of dollars for the Beis HaMikdash. Well, halavai, everyone should be so poor as David HaMelech. Here, how does it make sense that he in his poverty, he prepared for the Beis HaMikdash? So the Gemara, the Medrash says, "V'chi ani makdish kol hakikar halalu." Can an ani sanctify all these talents? Shel zav v'kesef ela b'yoyim sheharag David es Goliath. On the day David killed Goliath, hishlichu alav b'nai Yisrael kol hakesef zav hazeh. The Jewish girls threw to David all the silver and the gold. V'hikdisha lebeis hamikdash uchsheba rav shalei shanim. And then there was famine 3 years. Bikshu mimenu Yisrael litein. The Jewish people wanted David to give them his money because David had tremendous storehouses from defeating Goliath. And when there was a famine, the Jewish people asked David, "Nu, give us your money." V'loi ratzu litem klum. David HaMelech says, "I don't want to give anything. I dedicated to the Beis HaMikdash." Amar lei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, "Loi kabalta alecha lahachiyus b'nefashos." You didn't want to accept upon yourself to revive all these souls. Chayecha she'ein hamakdish hamikdash nivna al yadcha. I swear, the Beis HaMikdash will not be built through you. El yadei shlemach d'chsiv v'hi devar Hashem al nasan leimar leich ve'amarta asher yetze mimeyacha hu yivna bayis l'shmi. So the Yalkut Shemaini is saying, David HaMelech struck it big when he defeated Goliath. And then later on there was a famine, and the Jewish people said, "No, give us some money." And David said, "No, I'm not. I don't give out welfare. Go make a living." So here already Chazal find fault with David for not adequately giving tzedakah v'chesed. But we have to ask, why didn't David HaMelech want to give the money? The answer is, the Medrash says, "Hikdisha lebeis hamikdash." He didn't want to give the money because he already sanctified it for the Beis HaMikdash. He couldn't give the money. He sanctified it. So David HaMelech sanctified all the money that he got for beating Goliath to the Beis HaMikdash, and he couldn't give the tzedakah. Okay, but now we have a contradiction. Because the Medrash says he couldn't build the Beis HaMikdash because he didn't give tzedakah. And yet, the Pasuk in Divrei Hayamim says he couldn't build the Beis HaMikdash because he had blood on his hands. So make up your mind. Is it like the Medrash says that he didn't give enough tzedakah, he didn't give away the money that he was makdish to the Beis HaMikdash, or is it like the Pasuk says that he had blood on his hands? So to answer the contradiction between the Medrash and the Psukim, we have to see a Gemara in Brachos and Daf Gimel. The Gemara in Brachos and Daf Gimel Amud Beis says, Amar Rav Acha bar Bizna, Amar Rab Shimon Chasida. Kinar haya taloi lemala mimitasei shel David. There was a harp suspended above the bed of David. V'kivan shehigia chatzois laila. And when chatzois came, ba ruach tzefainis, the north wind came, v'noi sheves bay, and blew. Umenagin me'elav, and the harp played on its own. Haya oimed v'oisik b'Torah. He stood up and he involved himself in learning. Ad sha'ala min hashachar. So David HaMelech learned the whole night. Kivan sha'ala min hashachar. When the morning came, nichnesu chachmei Yisrael. The wise men of Israel came to David. Amru lai, they said, Adonenu HaMelech, our master the king, amcha yisod tzrichem parnasa. The Jewish people need livelihood. You have a lot of money. So David said, okay. Amar lohem l'chu v'esparnasu zemizeh. I don't know, open up a dry cleaning business. Sell used cars, sell life insurance. What do you want from my life? Get a job. Yeah, the Jews need parnasa. Okay, what else is new? So let them work. Amru lai eina kames nazir sa'ariv eina bar masameh chil yasai. Basically, they said there's not enough parnasa to keep it in-house. There are not enough dirty shirts from Yom Tif to support the dry cleaning business, and not enough Jews who need used cars to support the used car business. And life insurance, it's not going to cut it. So David said, I don't know. Amar lahem lechu Pashtu yedechem b'gdud. So go ahead and wage a war. War always boosts the economy. How did the United States of America get out of the Great Depression? World War II. That's it. So go wage a war and you'll boost the economy. Ooh, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, look at this Gemara. The Chachamim came to David and they said, David, give tzedakah. And David said, no, let them support themselves. They said there are not enough jobs to go around. So David said, go fight a war. So why was David not zoicha to build the Beis HaMikdash? Is it because he didn't give tzedakah? Or is it because his hands were sullied in blood? The answer is because he didn't give tzedakah, he encouraged the Jewish people to wage a war which was not a melchemes mitzvah. And that war, which was not a melchemes mitzvah, was on that was innocent blood, so to speak, that was on David's hands, that because of that, Hashem said, your hands are full of blood, you cannot build the temple. That's what it means. Vayhi olai dvar Hashem lemar, dam laroiv shafachta, you spilled a lot of blood. It's not talking about when David beat Amalek or when he conquered Israel or waged Melchemes Mitzvah. It's talking about when he didn't want to give the money that he put away for the Beis HaMikdash, and instead he told the Jewish people to wage war. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz in the Yaros Devash, Drush Beis, Ki Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu LeDavid, Damim harbe shafachta, you spilled a lot of blood, Ata loisim na bayis hazeh, v'yesh lo haven ma'in zel ben Mikdash. So what? He had blood on his hands. What's that got to do with the temple? But, says Rabbi Yonasan, he quoting the Gemara in Brachos on Gimel Amud Beis on Sanhedrin, when the Amid HaShachar rose, the Chachmei Yisrael entered. Why did David say, I'm not going to support the Klal Yisrael? And what did the Chachmei Yisrael mean? Klal Yisrael needs parnasa. So what do they want from David? David's a headhunter? David's going to find everyone a job? What do they want from him? But the answer is David put away a lot of money to the Beis HaMikdash. And he said, in my poverty, I prepared a lot of money for the Beis HaMikdash. And the Midrash asks, David HaMelech apparently was not poor if he saved all that money. But when he killed Goliath, the Jewish women threw him all the money. And he separated for the Beis HaMikdash, and there was a famine, he didn't want to support them. Says Rabbi Yonasan, V'nira, ki chachmei Yisrael heim shebikshu sheyitin la'aniyah me'ikasav zavahu. The Jewish sages requested that he give to the aniyim from the money in his treasury. And that's why they said, Amcha Yisrael tzrichim parnasa. Otherwise, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, what were the sages saying? Hey, David, the Jewish people need parnasa. Okay, very nice. What do they want from him? The answer is they wanted him to open up the treasuries. V'hu mi'ein laseis. He refused. And what did he tell them? B'tziva li'ilachim, tell them go to war. That's what God meant. Harbe milchamos rishus shenasu b'shvil parnasa l'aniyim. You wage many discretionary wars because of the parnasa l'aniyim. David could have avoided it by supporting the Jewish people. This is what it means. Damim harbe shafachta ki lachamta milchamas rishus. You waged discretionary wars. You didn't need it. Ki haya lecha lefarnes min ha'otzros. You should have supported them from the treasuries, and you were stingy. And the aniyim were swooning in hunger until the war was over. And in the interim they suffered. And therefore you will not build the Beis HaMikdash. Therefore, Lakacha Amarti, says Rabbi Yonasan, I say derech halotza in somewhat of a humorous vein. This is what it means. Va'achaltem lachmecha lasoiva. When you will eat bread in satiety, v'nasati shalom ba'aretz. I will place peace in the land. Because when Klal Yisrael doesn't have parnasa, then they go out and they wage wars. But when you have food, then there's peace in the world. You ever notice that? When people are successful, there's peace. When they don't have food, they go out to war. By the way, how do you say bread in Hebrew? Lechem, fighting. How do you or matzah, striving? Because it's all about, if you don't have food, you have to boost the economy and go out to war. But Klal Yisrael didn't have parnasa, so David said, Pashtu Yidem, Bigdud. This is what it means. If you're not missing anything, you don't need to go to war. But better to give tzedakah than build a Beis HaMikdash. Tzedakah is greater than the Beis HaMikdash. But, especially tzedakah to Tamid Chachamim, to uphold Torah, is even greater than building the Beis HaMikdash. Now, whatever happened with that money? Interesting thing, a little known fact. So David HaMelech had a big storehouse, and he put away the money for the Beis HaMikdash. Was that money ultimately used for the Beis HaMikdash? No, it wasn't. The pasuk says in Malachim Aleph, "V'atishlam kol hamelacha asher asa HaMelech Shlomo Beis Hashem." So they finished the job. Vayavei Shlomo ha'es kodshei David Aviv es ha'kesav es hazavi es ha'kelim nasan be'oitzerois Beis Hashem. So Shlomo took the money and he put it in the storehouse. Says Radak B'Yeshomrim, this is what Shlomo said. There was famine in the days of my father for 3 years, and he should have given the money to the Aniyim. And therefore, Shlomo said, we're going to keep that money in the storehouse. The next time somebody needs money, we're not using it to build a temple, we're going to use it to support Tamid Chachamim. Now,
if the money was already hektish, because it was going to be used for Beis HaMikdash, how could you give it to Aniyim?
Ayin Rishulchan Aruch Siman Kufnan Gimel. If, let's say, people gave money to a shul, you're allowed to use that money to give tzedakah as long as you pay it back. But once items were purchased with it, then you cannot switch it. So, I don't know, Ulai, he borrowed against it. In other words, he used other money to build the Beis HaMikdash, and that money he used for the Aniyim. You could swap the money as long as nothing's bought with it. But I don't know. Now, let's go back to the fate of David HaMelech. The Gemara in Shabbos says that David on his last day was Shabbos and he spent the whole day learning, but then the Satan made a racket, so David went to the back door, he climbed up the ladder, and Salak B'darga, Ivchis Darga, the ladder gave way. Now, although we are not entitled to say that David suffered this fate for any reason, because we cannot attribute any deficiency to our Avos HaKadoshim, nevertheless, Chazal have already identified in the Yalkut Shemaini that David was criticized for not giving tzedakah, and that's why he was not zoicha to build the Beis HaMikdash. So said Rabbi Bernstein that it's quite compelling then if Chazal have found this very minuscule, albeit a deficiency in David's giving of tzedakah, it's quite illuminating that in fact David suffered the fate of what occurred to Rav Papa of Ivchis Darga, as the Gemara reveals the trup on the words Pasayach Tiftach is Darga Severe. So if we could humbly add 2 things. I saw in the Sefer V'Shalal Lo Yachzar, on Parsha Shoftim, page Reish Yud Gimel, where it says that a king should have a Sefer Torah. V'hoisa imai, he should have it with him. V'kara b'y kol yemei chayav, and he should read it all the days of his life. L'man yilmad liyira, so he could learn to fear Hashem. L'man yarech yamim, so he could live long. Al mamlachtay. And he quotes the Gemara in Shabbos that in fact David HaMelech was going to use this Gemara to lengthen his days, as he knew he was going to die on Shabbos, and he spent the whole Shabbos learning. Says Hagoyin HaMufla Rabbi Yaakov Levi that the trup on the words Yamim al mamlachtai Darga Severe. Here's the remez. The king should have with him the Sefer Torah all the days of his life, and he should learn without hefsek yomim v'layla to live long, because then the Mount Chamavos can't get him. But when the time comes, Darga Severe, sometimes the step could fall beneath him. and he'll stop learning, and then the Malach Hamavis could get him. So this pasuk is also a remez to David HaMelech, who spent all his day learning. He was karabay kol yemei chayav, but the trup on those words are Laman Yarch Yamim Amamlachtai, and that also what occurred to David was Darga Severe. So I couldn't help but think as follows. There is a pasuk in Tanakh, in Tehillim specifically, that talks about the foot giving way. Imamarti mataragli. If I said, David says, if I thought mataragli, my foot was going to cave in, chastecha Hashem yisadeni. The kindness of Hashem would support me. And in light of what we learned, I believe we can interpret the pasuk as follows. The Medrash tells us, and the Chafetz Chaim quotes it in the Sefer Avas Chesed. The Medrash says, "Boi ure'ei koichan shal balei tzedakah v'gamlei chesed." Come and see the strength of those who give charity and perform kindness. That they will take refuge not in the wings of a cherub, and not in the wings of the sun, and not in the wings of the morning star, but in the wings of God Himself. Anyone who does tzedakah v'chesed will take refuge in the wings of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself. Shenemar, Ma'yakar chazdecha Elokim, how dear, how beloved is your kindness, Hashem. So the Chafetz Chaim asks, I don't understand. We're saying that people who do kindness, they will be protected by the wings of the Shekhinah. Ma'yakar chazdecha Elokim, uvnei adam b'tzel kinafecha yechasayon. The pasuk is saying, how great is your kindness, Hashem, that people take refuge in your shelter. How can we learn from there that how great are people's kindness that they take refuge in your shelter? The pasuk says, God, how great is your kindness? Says the Chafetz Chaim, the way you read the pasuk is, how great is your kindness, Hashem, but when is Hashem's kindness aroused? Hashem's kindness is aroused, midah keneged midah, when people are acting and are goimel chasadim one to another. Ma'yakar, how precious it is, when people are ma'oirer, your kindness, Hashem, when they do chesed. Ma'yakar chasdecha Elokim, your kindness, Hashem, is a reference to people's kindness, because people only arouse your kindness when they are going mal chasadim. Ma'yakar chasdecha Elokim, how precious it is when people do kindness and arouse your kindness. Uvnei adam b'tzel kinafecha yechasayon. Likewise, we interpret as follows. Ima marti mataragli. David says, when I thought my foot would cave in. When does one's foot, chas v'shalom, cave in? If they are not pasayach tiftach. But when does Hashem support our feet? Chastecha Hashem yisadeni. Your kindness, Hashem, which is aroused and evident when I do chesed, that is what sustains me. So to ensure that we remain standing with security and with assurance and with bitachon, to ensure that our raglayim are not mata. We say, marti mata ragli, what gives our feet stability is chastecha Hashem. When we arouse the chesed of Hashem through our kindness, yisadeni, that is what supports us. And this is alluded to in merely the trup itself. It's an amazing thing. You know, the Gedolim were familiar not only with the words of Tanakh, but with the trup as well. The story goes that Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky had cracked the secret of the trup, which means that not only did he know all the psukim of Tanakh, and not only did he know the trup on all the psukim of Tanakh, he understood the meaning of and the significance of a particular trup. In fact, he once gave a shiur that whenever you find Munach Zarka, Munach Saga, it means a certain thing. And Rav Moshe heard about this principle that Rabbi Yaakov said, and he asked, but in Daniel there's a Munach Zarka, Munach Saga, and it doesn't mean that. And Rabbi Yaakov wrote back, or sent back, I heard this from Rabbi Yisrael Reisman, that Rav Moshe, very nice, the trup on Daniel, but what about the Mincha Shai? The Mincha Shai changes the trup on those words to a different trup. So here you see that Gedolei Yisrael, Gedolei HaPoskim, they were familiar with every nuance and every detail. I'll just end off with one question on last week's Parsha, some food for thought. We know that whenever you have a patach, like Mardechai, in Megillah it's always Mardechai, unless it's at an asnachta or a soif pasuk, Mardechai. There happens to be one exception to that. Va'yagidul Mardechai, yes, Devrei Esther. There it's a zakev katan. In Parshas Eikev, I'll just end off with one question. It says, Eretz nachale moyim. It should be mayim. It's not an asnachta. It's not a soif pasuk. It's a zakev katan. And there's already an asnachta in that pasuk. So, and this is a question Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky deals with, but we see that every detail of Torah is laden with so much meaning. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu give us insight. Be megala einenu v'habitu neflois mitarasai. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a great day. Kol tov. Baruch
Thank
to
you
you.
very much.
Kol tov. Thank you. Thank you.
Rabbi Glatstein. Thank you.
Baruch to you. Have a good day. Be well. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Toda. Toda.
Thanks again.
Thank you.